Hi, this is Wayne Bergeron, and you're listening to Triple Threat.
That's perfect. Hello and welcome to Triple Threat. We are the internet talk show about the Beatles, The Who, and the Pink Floyd. For this episode, we're going to be doing something kind of cool. We're doing the 50th anniversary of The Who's debut album, My Generation. We're going to be talking about the album, but before we get into all that, let's go around and introduce who we are. We are your four hosts this time around. My name is Tom Rutia, and joining me, as they have in the past, is Garrett Hicks.
Hey!
Becca Christino.
Hello, hello.
And speaking of debut, making his debut today on Triple Threat is my buddy to my left, because you can all see that on audio, is Peter Scharff. Peter, welcome.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Claps for radio.
Yeah, claps for radio.
Oh.
Anyway, so...
I didn't mean that. You're a very nice guy.
Got a blanket for radio. What did you say? I didn't even hear you.
I do.
I don't think you even heard what you said, so it's all good.
Oh, it's... Sorry.
Well, that's...
Apology accepted.
Well, that's all that matters.
I didn't mean those words.
Whatever they were.
Okay.
So...
God heard you.
So our topic today is, like I said, just The Who's first album, My Generation, released on December 3rd, 1965 in the UK, made it to number 5 on the charts, and released April 66 here in the US with a slightly different track listing, and was called The Who Sings My Generation. Really, this album was sort of made to capitalize on the success of I Can't Explain in the UK, which reached number 8. In 2012, Rolling Stone put My Generation at number 237 of the 500 greatest rock and roll albums of all time. So not only are we going to talk about the album and give it its 50th anniversary celebration, but we're going to go through all the tracks, and we're kind of going to look at it as a unique place in The Who's catalog. Does that sound fair, you guys?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. No, all right, you're off.
All right.
No.
Bye.
Nice while it lasted.
The short and sweet career of Peter.
Well, but before we get into that, Garrett is going to give us some history about the album, how it came to be. So, Garrett, take it away.
All right, so the year is 1964. Yeah, 1964, when these four dudes in the London area, named Pete Townsend, Roger Daltrey, John Entwistle, and their new drummer Keith Moon, combined to make The Who, after they had been in various other acts before that, including an act called The Detours. And before they really started gaining a following, they had a brief interlude where they had the name The High Numbers, when they were managed by Mr. Peter Meaden, who was essentially grooming them to become a band for the cultural movement called the Mods in London at that time, all about the special fancy clothes and haircuts and motorcycles and all the fun stuff that was going on in the 60s when you didn't have much else to do than party and listen to cool records. So the High Numbers were the sort of flagship band for the Mods at that time, and Becca's cutting her hair. Okay.
Well, that's what they did. They cut their hair.
Yeah.
It's also a track on Quadrophenia, but that's another episode.
Mm-hmm. She's doing a history lesson for us.
Yeah.
See? There you go. It's a visual representation for all of you radio viewers out there.
Yeah, so just picture it right now.
Another history lesson, being the Keith Moon of the group, making everybody laugh when they're recording.
There you go.
You were talking about the High Numbers were sort of like the ideal band for the Mods.
Yeah. And they released an early single called Zoot Suit, but it failed to chart miserably. So after that, the band decided to separate from their manager, find a couple of new ones, which were Kit Lambert and Chris Stamp, and take back their old name, The Who, because it looked fantastic on posters, being so small, that they could just blow it up and it would look awesome. And so Pete wrote I Can't Explain, as you mentioned, got to number 8, you said? In the charts?
Number 8 on the charts.
And in the UK, and it was like in the 90s in US.
93.
Yeah.
Just shows how much the US cared about The Who at the time.
Who?
They
Yeah.
got on the charts.
That was the US's reaction. They went, who? Exactly.
Who?
Yeah, you're right.
That's part of the charm of the name, is that what are you listening to? Who? The Who? Yeah.
Blow it up on posters. That ain't the only thing they blew up, you feel?
Oh yeah.
A sign of what was to come.
Yep. Especially, after they really made their debut and started playing more, they started smashing their gear and everything. And we land right in the middle of that when they decide to capitalize on the success of their early 2 singles, which were I Can't Explain and Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere, and make their first album, My Generation. And that's what we're going to review now.
The rest is history. And this episode.
But if I may, there's actually a little bit more to that history, if I may.
You may.
The album was recorded, but not the album that we know. Most of the album when they recorded it was, I think, in April '65. It included a whole bunch of covers and only one Pete Townsend original, which was Out in the Street. That was the album that was originally recorded. Artwork was finalized, release dates were set, and then their producer Shel Tomley, in all of his wondrous glory, leaked the album to a reviewer who promptly gave it a bad review. Yeah, the bad reviewer complained about lack of originality, so the album was shelved. And then months later, since the Who were touring as a club act, they couldn't be in the studio until months later. So months later, they get in the studio. By then, Pete Townsend had developed as a writer, had progressed more beyond Out in the Street, and wrote more songs. And then they chose those, and then went back to the covers, chose a few to put on the album, and that's when the album finally came out.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, actually. Funny.
Right, because if you think about the original album as it was made, it included covers like Eddie Holland's Leaving Here, Paul Rader's Luby, Shout and Shimmy, all those others, and like I said, only one original Out in the Street. That original album pretty much would have been their live act just on record.
Yeah.
And but luckily, like I said, Shel leaked the album, and so now we get the album as we are going to review it in a second. So,
a real quick note: Shel Tomley by that story is pretty much awesome, but he also really shucks for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm. He
did a lot of releasing things behind the Who's back, especially the Magic Bus incident in the 60s.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I know that one.
He released a compilation album without their permission.
That wasn't the only thing he released without their permission. Believe me.
Yeah. And then after that, he had the balls to retain royalty rights to everything until like the early 2000s. So every reissue had to be made with inferior recordings.
Right. He kind of gets a bad rep in Who history, but you know what?
They wouldn't have started without him. He did a lot of very important things for them at the beginning.
Exactly. And so he kind of got them set, and they pretty much went from there. So before we get into the album, I kind of thought we kind of go around and kind of give our overall impressions of the album. Like quick, like when you first heard it, what'd you think? So Becca, we haven't heard from you. Let's start with you on this one. First time you heard My Generation, the album, and what do you think of it now?
First time I heard it, you just get gripped by the energy. Like, it's just energetic. It's a good first album because they just, grab you and shake you. This is the Who. This is what they're doing. It was essentially, sorry to keep using this, but it's an explosion.
Well, explosion's a good metaphor.
Yeah,
so
that's all they did.
Right.
And now what I think of it is, it's a good first album. It's a solid first album.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we haven't heard from Peter either. He's kind of just been sitting in his chair. So,
yeah.
Peter, you heard this album. Wow. You heard this album not too long ago. What did you think of it?
Yeah. So, 23 hours ago, I listened to this album all the way through for the first time. I heard My Generation, but that's about it. I really liked it. I mean, it's you can definitely hear a lot of the influence that they had on later artists like Iggy Pop and guys like Rancid.
Rancid?
Rancid.
Oh, okay. Rancid. Okay. Well, all right. Well, what about you, Garrett? What was your thoughts on My Generation as an album?
Well, My Generation was one of the albums that I kind of got toward the end of my collecting phase of albums. And as such, I'd kind of already established a lot of favorites among the albums that I had. So My Generation actually comes out to me as probably one of the lower ranked Who albums. It's one of the ones I listen to the least. It is a solid album, like Becca said. It's not my favorite. There's not much for me to come back to on it.
I kind of feel the same way. In fact, Becca kind of said it perfectly. This to me has to be their first album, in the sense that while this album does have a lot of very good songs, I am glad that they progressed from these. In,
Nothing close to where they were about to go.
right, because in a sense that that's one reason why I don't come back to this album a whole lot because there aren't that many songs that grab me. While a lot of songs are very good, but it's one that has to be listened to, kind of like as a little history to kind of see where the band came from. And it just so happens to have the album that had their signature song, My Generation. And that's another reason why I'm glad they progressed. Like if you take the next album, for example, a quick one, there you have some songs that are that definitely show an evolution. Things like Boris the Spider.
The title track because it's literally 10 minutes long.
Right, like a quick one, Boris the Spider. But songs like I'm sorry if you guys like this song, but songs like Don't Look Back or Don't Look Away. I can't remember the title right now.
Don't Look Away.
Don't look back in anger. Oh wait, that's Oasis.
Just say yeah.
No.
Liam Gallagher's my favorite member of the Who.
Yeah. I think
Anyway, here's Wonderwall.
I think Liam Gallagher is Liam Gallagher's favorite member of the Who.
Liam Gallagher's
Right.
favorite everything.
Right,
But Noel's just a hater.
but the point that I was getting at is that songs on the second album, like Don't Look Away, pretty much could have fit on this album because a song like that to me doesn't feel like that much of a progression from this album. So with that, should we get on to the track listing?
Let's.
Okay. The album opens with what I mentioned earlier. Opens with a Pete Townsend original, the only one that was recorded that first session, called "Out in the Street." To me, it's a nice open. The opening strum, it sounds like a tremolo effect. Is kind of like Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere. So it kind of tricks you when you first hear it.
You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first time I heard that, I was like, wait, that song's on this album? And no, it's not. It's entirely different. Okay.
Well, I guess kind of like I said, we'll go around to give thoughts on Out in the Street. Peter, let's start with you. Out in the Street as an opener.
As an opener, it's a good one. I always think that the first album on a song should be relatively energetic, especially for a rock album. It's like
The first album on a song?
first song on an album. Yeah, whatever.
Be nice.
And then I was saying I listen to more modern music, like Foo Fighters, One by One, the album. Is that right? It's their first song is Times Like These. That's a great opener. It's energetic. It just gets you bouncing.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure, back in the '60s, that's what they would have been doing when this song.
The first song on
Yeah.
the first song in the first album has to make a little bit of an impression on you.
Yep.
Gotta grab you. I agree with you about the first song on an album. It's a really good way to test if you're gonna like the rest of the album. It's a good indicator. They have to grab you at first, otherwise you'll stop listening before all the other stuff comes in.
Absolutely.
So definitely agree with you on that. And I think this song does a good job of getting your attention.
Mm-hmm. Garrett, out in the Street.
I do agree with y'all in the importance of beginning an album with a bang. That it has to grab you immediately. I mean, that's why Please Please Me by the Beatles I saw her standing there first, because it has that fantastic count-in by Paul McCartney. As for Out in the Street, I mean, it's okay. It does get your attention immediately, I'll give it that. And it is bouncy, like you were saying, Peter, but I don't know. There are just parts of it that I go like, this is kind of boring. And
He's gonna be
a
the
lot of
cynic
parts
this time.
It's also a bit cheesy, like how the backing vocals are going, no, no, no. I'm like, I don't give a stop.
Always makes me laugh. It's a little cringy.
Yeah, and I realize now kind of why I don't like that is because a lot of the song, a lot of the lyrics weren't actually written by Pete. They were written by Kit Lambert.
Didn't know that.
One of their co-managers, and he said, I wish he hadn't done that because it kind of felt like he was taking my song away from me, but, whatever.
I never knew that. That makes me upsetty.
Yeah, and so now I'm just kind of, it's a song there, and whatever. It's better than some of the songs on this album, I'll say.
You're right.
I would actually agree with pretty much all three of you. I don't find it much as a standout, except for the fact that it's the first song on the first album, and I do like it. And I totally forgot to mention this, but already, in my opinion, it kind of shows what the Who is capable of. Because already on the opener, you have great vocals, great drums, great guitar work, and great backing vocals that are kind of a sign of what's to come. So, like in hindsight now, we can look back and I'm being all like, wow, that song kind of set the stage. But you're right, as a song itself, I don't really go back to it unless I'm playing this album from the beginning.
Yeah. I do agree with you. It does immediately set up the Who as very competent musicians. That's for sure. This entire album is a testament to their technical ability.
Sorry. So let's move on to track 2, which is I Don't Mind. This is the first cover that appears on the album. This is a cover of a James Brown song. At the time, it would have been known from James Brown's massive album, Live at the Apollo. And Garrett's making a face a little bit because I know that he doesn't...
I was burping.
Oh, well,
The song makes me sick.
well, he does...
The water bottle. No, I don't like this song.
Well, he does. Well, when Garrett burps up a song, it's I Don't Mind. So I know that you don't particularly care for the James Brown covers. Is there any particular reason? You've never really kind of specified on that.
Roger Daltrey, God love him, and it's his birthday tomorrow as of when we're recording this, but damn it, man. When you were 19, you couldn't sing James Brown. You shouldn't have tried.
Well, no one should try.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, this
Not even you. Sorry.
No, that's another one.
Even 50 years later. Even 50 years later. Not even us.
No.
no. But, I mean, this one, again, there are worse songs on this album, but this is one of my least favorites. It just sounds very whiny. It doesn't sound like the Who as a band are very comfortable playing this one. The backing vocals aren't really up to scratch. There are many, many times where, preparing for this review, I wanted to skip this one, but I had to go through it again and again.
Oh.
Yeah.
But,
Dedicated masochist.
yeah.
Okay.
Piggybacking off of what you're saying about just the quality of it, I mean, not necessarily its recording merit and the shortfalls in that, but I do feel like what you were saying is true about it doesn't really sound like the Who. They didn't really take their covers and make them their own. They just kind of played it how, the original artist would have played it. How you would play it, like if you're going to
a club.
You're going to a club and you're just playing covers. You don't really put your own spin on it. You just kind of play it.
To be fair, at that time, that's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a fairly straight cover, and I do want to just kind of throw this out. Has anybody, besides me, because I did research for this, has anybody heard the original James Brown?
No,
Nope.
actually.
Okay, well, it's
amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty fairly straight. That's about it. Except James Brown's version's got some, I think it's got some horns on it, and the Who they trimmed James Brown's big band to just 4 instruments.
It doesn't
Yeah.
work.
It really just doesn't bode well.
Yeah. Well, Beck, anything to add to I Don't Mind? I know we're kind of trashing it. You want to add fuel to this fire?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like,
I will gladly fuel this fire.
yes, no, please fuel this fire. It's just uncomfortable. You're right. It's uncomfortable hearing Roger Daltrey try to sing James Brown. Something about it just doesn't feel right.
At this time in his life, it definitely didn't work. Maybe later on. I don't know. I haven't heard. I don't know. He might have been able to do it later.
It could work if, instead of it being like, Roger Daltrey trying to sing James Brown, like you said, it's a straight cover. If they had made it their own in some way,
I agree.
it would have probably been a lot better, because that's what can make a cover good, when it does something inventive and brings a song new meaning. This is what is characteristic of that time period, because I'm in a pop music class at my university right now, and let me tell you, it was just the whitewashing of the R&B music, and just like, it's just a straight cover, and it just takes away some of the magic. It's just the same thing over again.
Mm-hmm. It was a term that was coined in the '60s called plastic soul, which was to describe white artists, mainly the Rolling Stones, the Who, I guess to some extent, of white artists doing black music. And you could hear there was some soul if they sang, if they were lucky enough with the performance, but it's not really soul, because soul is for black artists only. So it was called plastic soul.
Like, it's important that those influences are there because it just becomes this good blend, but like at the time it still just feels artificial, especially this one.
Yeah, I too find this one a bit boring. It's a little too slow. I agree with Garrett. It's kind of drags on, and it's a bit repetitive. But you know what? I don't mean to be too defensive, but that's kind of how the original one works. But at least James Brown kind of makes it exciting because he's got that James Brown wail and all that stuff. And Roger's he's just not pulling this one off. This is I if I could, I would have probably replaced one of the earlier tracks with this one.
It gets the You Tried award.
Mm-hmm. Well, so let's move off from the cover and we'll go to another original. This is the third track called "The Good's Gone." I really like this track. It's some really searing opening guitar on this one, which again was kind of
viewers can see everyone is nodding in unison.
well, which is kind of a sign of what was to come, because the searing noises that they would make, yeah, I mean, I really like this track. I mean, again, is it anything that I really, really go back to? Like, does this song come in my head randomly during the day? No, not really, but I like it where it is. I can't talk anymore. Peter, save me.
Yeah, this is when I was talking about Iggy Pop. This is the one that really jumped out at me, where he's it's kind of like that speech singing at the beginning of the song. That's where I got that, and I just listened to Brick by Brick the other day, and that's where I got that. And now we have sombreros. I guess that means it's not my turn anymore.
Well, Becca stole the show, so now she gets to talk about "The Good's Gone."
It's definitely, I get what you're saying about the Iggy Pop. Now, I never thought about it that way until you brought it up. Now that you mention it, I could definitely see how that shaped that in the future. It's just a good song. It really just drives. I agree with what Tom said about the guitar. I don't have too much to say. Just a solid number.
Yeah. And if I may, you told me that earlier, and I kind of agree with you. The way that Roger sings is the way that he'll kind of not smear notes, but the kind of gruffness that he gives to his voice. Iggy Pop is not a singer like Roger Daltrey is, so Iggy Pop can sound kind of dirty, and so does Roger Daltrey when he sings this one.
But even when Iggy Pop sings, it's over exaggerated.
I am the passenger.
When he sings, it's beautiful, beautiful. When he's singing Candy.
Yeah.
Candy, candy, candy. Get that, yeah.
Oh my god.
It's either it's 0 or 100. It's never
it's never. In the
I'm
middle.
gonna take this seriously.
No middle grounds. No middle grounds.
Garrett, "The Good's Gone."
I really like "Good's Gone." It is one of my favorites on this album. It's interesting because it's not one of the really well-known early Who songs, and yet I've just always really enjoyed it because, like you said, the vocals are really interesting because at this point you didn't hear much of Roger going that far down in his vocal register. And Pete once said that this makes him sound like he's 6 feet tall. And since Roger is a rather short man, that's saying something.
That's saying something.
Very not 6 feet tall.
Yeah. And I also think that this song, had they given this song to another British invasion group that was trying to make it big, I think it could have been a hit.
Maybe.
I mean, I think it has that kind of British invasion vibe, and if they knew other acts at the time were trying to make it big, they'd be like, well, we had this song, it was just on our album, it didn't do anything, you want it, and I think it would have been a great British invasion tune.
Maybe, but I do have to say though, there is something very much The Who about it.
Oh, definitely.
I just feel couldn't be replicated by being given away.
Well, I think if it was given away, it probably wouldn't sound so dirty sounding. It would probably sound more pop, and then that would make
More polished.
right, and that would make it a hit.
Yeah, this is one of the ones, like I said, since I was listening to this very retrospectively, this is one of the ones where I could see, okay, this is where things are starting. I can see the beginning of a path here.
I agree. All right, so let's move on to track 4. We're going from dirty sounding song to a kind of an up tempo la 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 lies. It's well, it's a fun song. I mean, I know the lyrics are a little bit, sinister a little bit, but I don't know. Every time I hear this, I just the opening piano and the way the drums just kind of have that rhythm to me. It's just it's fun, and and it's got la 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 in the title. So,
Uh,
right.
this
So
one super cheesy, that's for sure. Um, I find it just kind of oddly endearing though.
me too.
Especially with just the way that the I guess the character that Roger's singing in this one is so blissfully optimistic about things that are terrible things happening with his love life. When it's so obvious that whoever he's talking to is lying behind his back all the time. And he's like, I don't care. I still love you. And like,
Everything is great.
everything is awesome. Okay, sorry.
But yeah, it's funny. Like, I find the song funny for the exact reasons this guy's talking about. Like, this guy's just going about his life, feeling good and all of this terrible stuff is happening. And it's like, really, buddy? And just the fact with like the John D piano and everything, it's so upbeat, even with all of this garbage, and it does that well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John T. Piano, courtesy of Nicky Hopkins,
Who's great. I don't think there needs to be more to be said about him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's for the Who.
Right.
And I don't really have much to say about the song other than that. I mean, it's probably about a guy who like found marijuana, and it's like, oh, I don't care.
Everything's cool.
Yeah,
Whatever, man.
I don't have any problems.
So let's move on to the next track. This is called Much Too Much. This was, again, another original that was recorded later after the album was scrapped. You know what? Funny enough, I don't really have much to say about this one because I actually kind of find it a bit boring, actually. Probably the reason why is because I guess, I don't know, to me it's just kind of a little too repetitive. There's not really much that's so gripping. I mean, the backing vocals are probably just the best thing I like about it. But the backing vocals usually don't save a song. It's usually got to be the lead vocal or the guitar work or whatever. So this one, I'll only really listen to this one in sequence. I find it, like I said, a bit boring. Sorry. So, anybody want to pick up from that?
There's not really much to be said about it for the exact reasons you just covered. It's a bit boring.
All right.
No,
Yeah,
it's like
I
your,
agree.
it's like your typical '60s pop song, really. I mean, it's just kind of, it's
Yeah,
you see them standing in their little blue suits and just kind of strumming along on the
Their
radio
guitars.
show. Yeah.
Yeah. This is probably another song that could have been given away to somebody.
Yeah, I kind of wish it had been, really.
You don't like this one either?
It is thoroughly mediocre on this album. This is straight in the middle between the ones I don't like and the ones that are good. Yeah, it is. It's just totally meh.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was getting at earlier. I'm saying, listening, there are some songs that, while this album has a lot of good songs, some of these songs make me think, you know what? I'm glad that they progress, because I don't want another Much Too Much on the next album. So, well, speaking of actual, like redeeming ourselves, the side one closes, and I'm thinking about it now. I can't believe about this sequencing. Side one closes with My Generation. I think everybody lay back for a little bit, because we're probably going to be a bit talking about this song in a little bit. Just kind of some cool things to say about this song. It's number 11 on the Rolling Stone 500 Greatest Rock Songs of All Time, and deservedly so. And
I was about to say, you're damn right.
yeah, this song kicked down so many doors for this group, and not just this group, but in music in general. Somebody I remember reading somewhere, I think it was in the liner notes to Live at Leeds, it said if this was the only record that they ever put out, or the only record that ever did anything, meaning this song, they still would deserve a place in rock history, because man, I love this track.
Mm-hmm.
It's fierce.
Yeah.
It's got this energy of just like this. It's hard to make words, because like it's friggin' My Generation. The song speaks for itself. It's got such a history to it. Like, it's the Who. It is like, if you had to pick like, well, I don't know. These are big words, but if you had to pick like a song to encapsulate their essence, like, this is the Who.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just grab you and shake you. This is what we are. This is what we're doing. Both our music and our show. And I'm back to the explosions again, but this song is definitely.
And a literal explosion, too.
Yeah.
Aha!
Even on the Smothers Brothers show. Hey,
The Smothers Brothers show.
Yeah. And Pete...
Fun fact, that's why Pete Townsend has tinnitus.
Yeah, Pete never regained his...
What we're referring to is the infamous 1967 incident where the Who were playing on the Smothers Brothers hour on TV when Keith said, hey, stagehand, I'm going to give you $50 if you fill my drum with blast powder. And he's like, okay, sure. And then it blew up on stage right next to Pete Townsend. And Pete definitely says, that's when I knew my hearing was going to be later in life.
Like, you see one side of his head, the hair is just sticking straight up from the glass. Like, it just, and it's just...
Well, yeah.
It's like a cartoon, almost.
Did you know his hair was actually on fire?
Yeah.
I love this band.
And then the best thing is John Entwistle just walks away.
He
Just kind of steps back for a minute like, holy shit.
I'm the bass player. I don't have to deal with this.
No one cares for the bass player.
He's the bass player. It's that he's John motherfucking Entwistle.
Yeah, I know. That's the funny part.
Classic John.
Right.
Speaking of John, dude, this song with John.
Oh,
This
bass
is
solo.
this is
Like,
one.
whoever thought of that before this? Boom.
This is one of the first ever bass guitar solos, and it is still the best one. Bite
Oh.
me.
No, I won't fight you. I'm gonna have to
No one
agree.
will fight you on this, Garrett, because it's valid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This just showcases their instrument, like each of their skills, so well. Like
Mhm.
Pete's ability to just have this dirty, like pounding guitar, just like driving the song forward. John
Yeah.
Entwistle as a bass player, like with the bass solo, usually the bass was just kind of like the underpinning of it all.
Yeah, it's just
like,
a fill
it
sound.
just takes a lead role. It has a solo, and it's just going all over the place. Don't get me started on Keith Moon. I won't shut up until like the sun rises.
Well, okay. Well, that's sort of get rid of my next note that I had. So I'll go on to the next one. And funny enough, you mentioned that there's a
So
story.
please talk about Keith Moon. Just don't make me do it.
Okay, all right.
'Cause
Well,
I won't stop.
before we derail to Keith, because Keith makes everything about Keith. Before we go there, let's
I make everything about Keith.
let's stay on John for a second, because some people don't know that when John was making that bass solo, because it was kind of so unusual and it had never been done before, he would play his heart out to make sure that you could hear the solo, darn it. And there was a story going around that the strings were either expensive or they were rare, that he couldn't just buy replacement strings because he kept breaking them, so he had to keep buying new basses for every section of the bass solo. Because because
I don't think
We've
that
come a
is
long
particularly
way.
true.
in bass technology.
right, they had the money for that.
Spoiler confirmed.
And actually, well, now that we went to John, let's go to Keith a little bit, because man, do Keith's drums just wail away on this track. I love it.
It just showcases the chaotic nature of just his style.
Mm-hmm.
As a man who has been quoted as saying drum solos are boring, his way of keeping the beat was essentially just doing whatever the hell he wanted, but just like driving it forward with like a tumbling thing.
Yeah,
It's very unorthodox and just changed the game forever.
the reason Keith would say that drum solo is boring because he drum solos practically all the time in The Who. That was just the way he did things, and thank
Exactly.
God for it.
So for him, there really is no such thing as a drum solo, because when you solo, that's just how you play.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of Keith, one of Keith's closest friends, Alice Cooper, gave a quote about this song, and pretty much simply said, the first time he heard My Generation, he kind of just was shooken and kind of said, what was that? And so again, we talk about this sign of things to come. Not only did this album and this song especially had a profound impact on so many musicians that heard this and didn't know that you could do these kind of things with music, things that music that sounded like chaos, essentially, because
Sounds like breaking the rules.
right.
Yeah.
And with this song alone, they did that. And the fact that, we haven't even begun to talk about the lyrics of My Generation. The lyrics kind of reflect how, where this is my generation, we can knock down these kind of barriers, not just with this, song musically, but just all sorts of things.
Before you hear Roger Daltrey finish the Fade Away, you pretty much think he's going to tell everybody to f*** off.
That was-
And it's amazing. Like, that's power.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Every time when I was little, when I would hear, I'd be like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, yes.
Well, I'm a kid. Well, I'm a kid at that point.
So was I.
Okay, well, you and I are different people.
You're an asshole, that's why.
Kind of on a fun technical note. Well, not really fun because this is kind of a travesty. The stereo mix of this song mixes out the lead guitar in between the bass section line. So don't even bother. I mean,
another incidence of Shell Talmy being an asshole. Yeah, man. My Generation is probably the best song on this album. It's certainly the most recognizable. And probably my favorite part about it, of all of my favorite parts about it, is it's got to be Roger's vocals on it. Because never before had I ever heard anything like that, really. I can say that a lot, but this was an actual case where I'm like, he's stuttering the lyrics. Why is he stuttering the lyrics? And there are various explanations as to that. Some say it's because he wanted to sound like someone who was hopped up on pills. Some say
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. And some say it's because Roger Daltrey actually does have a stutter. It's just he's so very good at presentation now that it doesn't really rear its head anymore. But the real reason for it was Pete Townsend had been listening to some John Lee Hooker and a song called Stuttering Blues, which had that kind of stuttering on it. But what really caught me about it was the fact that it was just so perfectly angry with the world and so angsty and everything. It is the perfect... My Generation is the song of perfect youth rebellion. I mean, that's why it's worked. That's why it's still relevant today.
Absolutely. It's a timeless song. Any kid can listen to that song and feel like, yeah, that applies to me. People talk shit about people my age.
Yeah.
Like anyone can, yeah.
Frequently.
It was definitely very apparent in the mid-'70s when punk came around. They actually said, we listened to early Who because they knew the shit they were talking about, and it still applies to us. And so we're going to do the same thing, except worse, with with stupid fashion. But I have my own opinions about punk.
I like that.
Or you can just be like Henry Rollins and not wear anything except, well, he just didn't wear a shirt.
yeah,
No fashion.
right, exactly. So
Love Black Flag.
So did we have anything to add to My Generation? I'm sure. I mean, I'm kind of out of breath to say, but Peter was going to speak up.
I did have one thing about Keith Moon. I feel like he got the inspiration for his rhythms just by listening to people fall down stairs. that's what I got. And that's what I get from that. It's just
That is, and I would say that is probably an accurate assumption.
falling down the stairs, knocking down every picture on the wall, and crashing into the china
And
cabinet.
Keith probably did that from experience too.
Yeah, he
That's
just
it.
might have been drunk one night. He's like, yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
One night, buddy?
Just one night. Yeah, he was only drunk
Well, I mean,
one night.
It had to happen. It had to happen the first time and be like, oh, hey, yeah.
Have you heard the hotel room horror stories of Keith Moon?
Driving a Rolls Royce into
My
a
God.
pool.
They say one of his influences was Gene Krupa, I think. So you just throw Gene Krupa down the stairs.
And Keith Moon did it himself.
There you go. Poor man.
He was so starstruck when he met Gene Krupa that he couldn't talk to him. He just was like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And just turned him down the stairs.
Threw him down the stairs, and that was it. That was the turning point.
Right, and that's when Keith Moon realized he wanted to be a drummer.
That's the beginning of the legend.
Right. Well, I think Peter was telling me that someone said, in rock.
Alice Cooper said that. It's like 40% of what you hear about rock stars is true. 100% of what you hear about Keith Moon is true. You hear stories about him like hanging at Alice Cooper's house, just wearing a French maid outfit,
Yes.
something like that. Yeah.
Pretty sure there's photographic evidence of that one.
Yeah. He and Alice Cooper go to a club and they're kicked out at 2 a.m. and Keith Moon says, "Let's go to Vegas."
Yeah.
That
Or,
also happened.
Yep, that
Keith
happened.
Moon was known for hanging out in costume everywhere. He went to the beach as Caesar. He would go to Jewish butcheries as Hitler. He would
Did that.
Yeah.
he would walk around on Christmas Eve dressed as Scrooge. This man
He's like-
had no inhibitions.
He's like,
The
if
man
you
had
took
a hovercraft. He had a literal hovercraft. He crashed somewhere.
Of course.
It's like
he
if
did.
you took
Train
South
tracks.
Park and embodied it into a person, that's Keith Moon.
That's Keith Moon, South Park.
South Park
Not
embodied
necessarily
into.
anything ridiculous, really.
Or my personal favorite was when he'd have the Rolls Royce and he'd roll out and he'd put a blow up doll on it and make pretend he was having sex with her. That's some
I liked how he had the loudspeaker in one of his cars. I forget which one it was. Like he had like a loudspeaker.
Yeah, that's right. And
intercom.
he was
Like
driving.
Come out of it, and he would just drive into parks and scare the out of people.
like a bullhorn in his car.
No, like an intercom.
Like an intercom
Like,
system.
Little thing for him to talk into, and it's like a big, like loud thing. So he'd like pretend to be a cop car almost, like just drive up real slowly behind someone he knew, and you'd be like, "I'm under arrest," and then they could like.
Yeah.
My favorite Keith Moon story was the one where he and John, what was it? We're in a hotel, and they were getting treated badly at the hotel, and they kind of looked at each other and they're like, you know what? This. And John says, so what can we do to really get back at these assholes? And he says, I got it. And he gets cherry bombs out of his suitcase, because of course Keith Moon has cherry bombs.
Yeah.
So they said, all right, what we'll do is we'll light one, and we'll flush it down the toilet, and there's a long enough fuse that when we flush it down the toilet, it'll blow up somewhere along the pipeline, and since all the toilets go together into one pipeline, they can't know it was us. So they get it, they plunk it into the toilet, John's got the chain, and they flush it down, and it doesn't go down the pipe, it just sits in the bowl. And they just look at each other and go, shit, and they run out and slam the door behind them, and they go, boom. They open the door, and there's just a hole where the toilet goes. And they go out to a bar later, so they can just kind of avoid anything happening. And then John looks up, and the hotel manager is standing next to him with 2 suitcases and says, we've gotten your stuff, gentlemen. Now you'll have to drive 500 miles to get to the nearest hotel who doesn't know that you are coming. Have fun. Keith Moon, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many Keith Moon stories in so little time.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
So,
we've reached the halfway point now.
right. Well, I was about to say, let me just say that we're going to take a break and we'll be right back after this. Hey, Triple Threat listeners, it's Tom, here to let you know about some upcoming episodes. In addition to celebrating The Who's My Generation's 50th anniversary, be on the lookout for shows about the Beatles' Rubber Soul 50th anniversary and Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here 40th anniversary. We'll be taking a look at all the songs and how each album stands up in each band's discography. We hope you'll join us for these special celebrations, and as always, thanks for listening to Triple Threat. And now, back to the show. And welcome back to Triple Threat. We're talking about The Who's 50th anniversary of their first album, My Generation, and we just finished talking about the songs on side 1. So flip over your iPods and computers, and we'll talk about the songs that are on side 2 of the album. We're going to start off with the song "The Kids Are Alright," another one of those Who songs that still gets recognized today. It's a great pop song for good reason, and it was actually one of their first singles here in the U.S. It was cut down from its original runtime down to about 2:42. I'm gonna toss it over to Peter because I know that, he's probably got some things to say about it. I guess not. I guess not.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I really have to point out about it is it just the title reminds me of a song by The Offspring called "The Kids Aren't Alright," and it's basically it's the antithesis of this song right here.
Really?
Yes.
Is it?
It's about the lead singer is talking about all the kids that he grew up with, how their lives went to trash. They all got hooked on drugs and died, and and got pregnant and stuff.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Garrett, take it away on this song. Oh, okay.
He's got
He's still
food in
okay.
his face. I could
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, Becca, take it away.
Oh my God, do I love this song. This is one of my favorite Who songs. I just love it. I don't know where else to take this. It'll just be me saying that I love it over and over again.
Mhm.
I don't like how the single version cuts out the drum part, because that one little part in the middle, not necessarily technically a drum solo per se.
It's a drum duet with the guitar.
Yeah, it's a part that showcases the drum specifically, and cutting that out cuts out a significant part of the song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The part that keeps that in is definitely like the better option.
Mm-hmm. And you're in the video to this song too, aren't you?
Oh yeah, there's the music video for this song. There's a young girl who looks to be about like 13, 14.
I was
And
gonna say
looks-
closer to 16 or 18.
Well, okay, between like 14 and 16, and she looks almost identical to how I looked at that age.
Huh.
It's bizarre. I forget what time.
Are you sure you're not
what
80
time
years
mark
old?
you see her at? Like it's at like
Around 2 minutes, I think.
it's around 2 minutes in. She just looks exactly like she does this little hair flip thing, and it's like, oh, hello. I wish I was there. I mean,
Who wouldn't want to be in Hyde Park with The Who doing an awkward music video?
Yeah. And besides the fact they don't really do much, they just mimed the song. That's really it.
Yeah, this was before Roger had his stage presence where he would whirl the microphones around.
Right? He's just got his hands in his pocket in this video.
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of like swaying.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on
Kind of like
Keith
how
Moon's
Michael
playing
Stipe
the
has
drums.
always been.
Michael Stipe's always putting his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
Michael Stipe.
Just standing still.
All right. Well, Garrett, take it away on this one.
Man, Kids Are Alright is so good. So good. Definitely.
So good. So good.
So good.
Oh,
so good.
I got
so
you. That.
good.
It's so
So
good.
good.
No.
Is it so good?
I'm never working with you again. Never.
It's so good.
But I really like it.
So good.
Okay.
I'm not working with you again ever.
I really like it because it's very Beatlesy, a lot of it. You listen to the guitar tone because Pete is playing a Rickenbacker, and it's like, yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
You listen to the 3-part harmonies on it. They're so good. They're gorgeous. Those harmonies. I need to stop saying that.
So good.
They're
I
wonderful.
really like the
Amazing.
melody on it.
Astounding.
Just get a thesaurus and just go from there.
Okay. All right.
Right.
We get it.
And they are all right, and so are the kids. In fact, sorry.
I love the melody on it. I love the way that Roger is delivering it. Yeah, the drum part is top notch as always. And even future performances of this song are also really good. Like in 2000, the Who were still playing this. This time they put in new improvised lyrics in the middle of it, like Pete's situation where when he was writing the song, and this kind of retrospective look at his life in the middle of it. And it's like, yeah, it's grown very well, this song. And it really helps that it had a great starting point on it. I just wish that the versions I've heard that include the little extra instrumental break we were talking about had Roger doing double-tracked vocals. Because I really think that the double track adds to this more than his kind of just a little bit lacking single track vocals.
Well, that's right. In the stereo, that's right. In the stereo mix, there's only just one vocal. In the mono mix, there's 2 vocals.
Because Shell tell him he can't stop messing with he shouldn't be messing with.
Mm-hmm. But in the stereo version, he did leave the song in its original length. So give him credit for that. But yeah, and I got to back up a little bit. I kind of disagree with you on the live. The live versions are cool, but they just don't do it for me as much as this version, because to me it's like a simple straight pop 60s tune should sound 60s, and to me hearing a 70-year-old sing "I don't mind," it's just kind of like I don't know.
Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Becca's right about that. I mean, a good song is a good song. This version is my favorite off the album.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's all I have to say. All right, so let's move on to the second James Brown cover on this album. This is Please, 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 which is actually a cover of James Brown's very first single. And it's kind of interesting that this song technically is on the Rolling Stone 500 Songs of All Time. It's at number 142. Of course, speaking about James Brown version, which I'm going to make a blanket statement. I'm a casual James Brown fan. I have the hits. And I much prefer this version. I much prefer James Brown's version over this one, because again, this one's fairly straight, and again, why they put this on the album, I'm not sure. It's nice to hear a band do a song that I am familiar with, but this just didn't work. Sorry, I can't talk. I'm out. Peter's taking over. So, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to cover James Brown. It's probably something you shouldn't do at all. That's all I have really to say about it. It's basically the same synopsis as
I Don't Mind.
As I Don't Mind. Yeah, I mean, it's a cover, and yeah,
but it's not a Who cover.
Yeah,
meaning look at Summertime Blues. Their version sounds nothing like Eddie Cochran's. This one's pretty faithful. Garrett, please talk about this song.
No.
Doesn't look
I think
like
all right. So we're
moving
not.
on.
All right. So we're not. No, we got.
This is far and away the worst song on this album.
it's so bad.
It is so awful with the cheesy ass Becca
So bad.
and the
So bad.
So bad.
So bad.
Roger's trying so hard. Stop making fun of me. Roger's trying his hardest on this, and it's just not working. Especially with the oh yeah bits, and it's like stop.
Do not.
No.
That's
No.
the worst part of the worst song.
You can't do James Brown, young Roger Daltrey. Just quit trying.
Well, it sounds like. Well, Becca, do you have anything else to add? I mean, you're kind of just going off on a tear.
So bad.
So bad.
Again, I'm speaking just like I Don't Mind. I would have preferred, if I had the vote, I would have preferred one of the other songs in this place. Oh boy. Okay, so let's move on to an actual original track. This is "It's Not True." Like I said, original by Pete. That was written after the album got a bad reputation, probably because they heard songs like "Please Please Me," the reviewers, and just went But this is "It's Not True," which is, to me personally, this is like an odd pop tune, only in the sense that there's some really odd lyrics. In fact, Peter and I were listening right before the show came on, and I was writing my notes, kind of just Chinese, Baghdad. I mean, these lyrics are in pop songs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pop song without pop lyrics, basically. I mean, he's talking about how, I'm trying to figure out if he meant that him not being Chinese meant that he didn't kill his dad. Like, do Chinese kill their dads? I don't know. That's what I thought. I mean,
Is that a regular thing?
Is that what he's trying to imply, though, that Chinese people kill their dads?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, the song has pop potential. Like the "It's Not True, It's Not True." Like, that's a pop hook. Like,
Yeah.
I love that hook. I love the harmonies on this track, but the lyrics, I just almost can't get past them. Believe it or not.
I don't know what y'all are talking about. I freaking love this one. This is the
No, it's a good song. It's just the lyrics throw you off.
Oh, I think this is other than the ones that became the massive hits that are still played today. This is the best song on the album. I love the lyrics. The ones you say are so weird because there's just so. This is one of the first instances where you see the Who's sense of humor as a group.
I will give it that. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I just love the way they play with it. And there's this moment where it's the sign, "I wasn't born in Baghdad," but the syllables don't fit, so "I weren't born in Baghdad." It's just like that's awesome. I love it. And Pete has often come back and said, "I hated this song so much, and I don't understand why every other member of the Who really liked it." He wanted to give it away to some country band, I think he said. But I really like "It's Not True." It's just so goofy and silly and fun. They're having fun with it.
Becca?
I won't say that, apart from the main singles, that it would be the best song on the album per se. But I do agree that it is where this Who's sense of humor starts to shine through. That's definitely a window into them.
Mm-hmm. So
but I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's amazing, but it's a solid song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a standout. You wouldn't say it's a standout?
It's a standout, but not the best one.
I think it's a standout, like I said, mainly because of the lyrics. I mean, I do like this. I do like this song because it does throw you off, but at the same time, on an album where the Who are trying to make a statement, to me, it's kind of an odd song. That's all I have to say. It's odd, but it's like goofy odd. Like you
It's
like
them odd. It's them.
It's charming, is what it is.
charming. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, so let's move on to the last cover on the album. This is "I'm a Man." For you U.S. listeners, you may not know this because this was not on the U.S. album because the U.S. audiences, the U.S. record companies were afraid that U.S. audiences would be too sexed up with this song. Odd, but okay. Okay. This is "I'm a Man." This is a cover of a Bo Diddley song, and this is probably out of all the covers on the album, this one has to be my favorite.
Yeah, it's easily the best. That's for damn sure.
Are you
Not
saying out
much
of the covers?
competition,
Yes.
really.
Yeah,
I
out of
was
the
about to say, like, it's not saying much considering the other two are young Roger Daltrey trying to sing James Brown. But it is a good cover in its own right. Like, it holds up pretty well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got that chaotic middle section where the drums and the guitars and the pianos are trying to like outdo one another. I mean, it's just so much. There's a lot of fun, and Roger's vocals on this one just to me sound like fun. Where the James Brown ones, he was trying to really put the emotion in it. This one, it's a fun and emotional vocal in this one. Again,
More natural.
Yeah, I love this track. All right.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely, it's a good one. It's a very good cover of it. They did manage to make this one closer to their own of any of the covers. I prefer different versions that the Who have done of it, but yeah, it's a great little number. The jam they have in the middle and end of it is definitely something worth listening to.
Mm-hmm. Well, Peter, did you have anything to add to "I'm a Man"?
Oh, just the you have the dun 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 dun. You hear the George Thorogood going on in the back of your head there.
I think this might be the first song that has that.
I know, yeah. I mean, it's Bo Diddley
Well, it
basically iconized blues with that riff.
right. Well, I mean, this song's got that riff kind of in its first like electric, like almost hard rock way, just like George Thorogood would take it and use it for Bad to the Bone.
Yeah.
Just probably a lot harder. Funny enough, Bad to the Bone also has a stuttering vocal on it.
Oh yeah.
There you
That's
go.
insane.
So George Thorogood, he was listening to this album. He took "I'm a Man" and "My Generation."
Mapping out influences is always a fun time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Anyway, speaking of chaos, let's move to the last song. This closed the UK album, simply called "The Ox," which for those who
Oh my god!
for keeping track is John Wintel's nickname, and Becca's actually gonna start. Becca's gonna start us off on this one.
This is just such a solid showcasing of my personal favorite rhythm section in rock history, and easily one of the best. Like, it's so good. It highlights John and Keith's talent very well. Like, the bass just rolls through it, and the drums just are like this tumbling forward, like this chaotic, rapid tumbling forward. Like, you were right when you said, speaking of chaos, leading into this, because this is just this chaotic jam that just rolls.
Mm-hmm.
It rolls and steamrolls forward like a friggin' ox. It is aptly titled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry.
Forget what I said about It's Not True. This is the best non-hit song on the album.
Yes.
And It's Not True is right behind. But just the way that this is the song where you realize that John, in particular, is trying to change everything about his position in the band, where he says, you know what? I'm not just a guy in the background. Yes, I had a solo earlier, but that's not the only time you're going to actually consciously hear me. In the beginning of the song, he's playing lead. You might not realize it, but the beginning couple of seconds of the song are not a guitar. It's actually him playing on a trebled up bass.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete joins in later. It's amazing that John Entwistle made the bass guitar a lead instrument, an instrument that is by default not a lead instrument and never really, until that point, had been. And still,
to take that kind of a role.
And there are so few people that were able to replicate that role in as a bass player. I mean, you can name a handful. You can maybe Geddy Lee and maybe Flea.
I was about to say, like, those two come to mind, like, immediately.
And maybe Sting in a sense.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would say Victor Wooten. But but you know, there's this really nice evolution of bass from just some noise you hear in the background, and then you get Paul McCartney, who was doing some really interesting things with it, but nothing that would immediately call attention to itself. And then there's John motherfucking Entwistle, who does this kind of stuff with it and changes the way the instrument is played.
Building off what you're saying, like, both were prominent bass players, like, good bass players at the time, Paul and John, but the thing is, Paul McCartney's bass parts are interesting and intricate and wonderful when you pay attention to them.
They're more melodic.
John Entwistle's bass playing grabs your attention. It doesn't wait for you to pay attention to it.
Right.
And that's what's so amazing about it.
Right. Paul's are pretty and actually, you know, melodic. John's is gripping.
Yeah.
I'm playing the bass!
Yeah,
basically.
It's like, oh, hey, I'm playing the bass, and this is really good. Listen to how good this is. Like, hey!
Right, and he's not the quiet one, and it just makes it so much funnier that, you know, whenever you see him live, he just stands still and he just rocks that bass. He's not Flea.
All our radio viewers shoving the bass directly in your face. I say as I pick up a very heavy instrument in my basement.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to describe it. And what's kind of on a fun trivia note is that this song gives Nicky Hopkins a songwriting credit, because he is on piano on this track also. So
this song was totally improvised, actually.
That's true. Yeah.
And it was, after that, they couldn't really replicate it. I don't think they ever really tried to play it live, except one time in 1969 during the My Generation jam. They just kind of played the beginning section of it and then moved on. It's actually pretty interesting to hear the only ever time they played some part of the Ox live.
Well, they did in '67 or '68 when they were doing all those BBC ads. You know, Happy Jack had some fun on Radio 1, and the Boris the Spider one. They did one kind of like the Ox for Top Gear, where it was just a bunch of chaos, and they just shouted the words "Top Gear" over it. So, I mean, it's in the Ox. I mean, I'm not saying they played the Ox and then, you know, shouted those words over it. It just has that similar chaotic feel when they're doing that Top Gear ad. So they kind of will replicate it years later. So it's fun that, you know, they can only really do it, like you said, in the studio. They can hardly do it live.
And some of the greatest songs ever were just kind of like made up on the spot. You know, you have the Ox and Highway Star by Deep Purple. They wrote that in like 5 minutes on the tour bus.
Oh, really?
And Damn It by Blink-182 is also done the same way.
I didn't know that. See, you bring a fourth guy and he brings some new perspectives.
Yeah.
So congratulations. So the next track is a Legal Matter, giving Pete Townsend his first ever vocal on record. Another searing like lead guitar opening, and God, it's again another great track. I mean, what's kind of funny is that the last 3 tracks really on this album are so good that even if you didn't like some of this stuff in the middle, you know, it kind of, you know, made you kind of worth it in the end. But this is
all worthwhile.
Right, but this is a Legal Matter. This is, you know, great tune, and I think you alluded to this earlier, Garrett. I think Shell put this out as a single without their permission, and then ironically enough, they broke away from him.
Yeah. Even though song's Legal Matter is technically referring to a divorce case, that's definitely a good interpretation of what happened, Tom.
Turn into a legal matter.
Yeah, very very ironic.
I really like. First off, yeah, you mentioned this is the first time we hear Pete up front, which is probably kind of an accident because Roger happened to be divorcing his wife at this time, and this probably hit really close to home for him.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not singing that.
but one of my favorite bits about, little factoids, I guess, about Legal Matter is that you can definitely hear in the vocal melody that this is kind of a ripoff of Rolling Stones' The Last Time.
Which they did a cover of.
Yeah. If you listen to it, you can definitely hear, oh, well, that's pretty much almost note for note The Last Time. But they get away with it because Pete had the brilliant idea to make the awesome riff that begins Legal Matter and persists throughout, the sort of sing-songy, teasing riff, like na-na-na-na-na sort of
I was
thing.
just about to say that. That's what the riff sounds
Very
like.
reminiscent of that.
Yeah, and it's got some really fun lyrics and a nice little talky bit at the end.
Yeah.
It's just,
That part.
it's so much. This song is so much fun, despite its kind of depressing subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's lyrical content, like the character from the point of view Peter's singing from just seems like an ass.
Yeah,
But it's fun.
But it's it's fine because it's a fun, catchy pop song.
I mean, it's
Who
kind of
cares
like
that this marriage is in shambles
it's
and
like,
there's going to be devastation and it's no fun all around. It's a fun pop
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
in a way, this is kind of the same thing as The Kids Are All Right. It's
Yeah.
just from a different perspective, I guess.
or
Yeah.
La La Lies, where it's it's talking about this guy with his problems, and he's like, oh, it's all right, it's cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And pretty much you kind of said it straight up here, Gary, because I'm a casual rolling fan too, and there have been times when I'm singing the last time in my mind, and I'll not aware of it, I'll slip in a line of a Legal Matter because the melodies are just it's so identical. And then the last song that we're going to talk about, which was the closer on the U.S. version, because since the U.S. version did not include "I'm a Man," they replaced this song instead, which was called "Circles." Instead, on the U.S. version, it was called "Instant Party." Because where in the lyrics do they mention an instant party? Nowhere. Yeah, nowhere do they mention that. But this is called "Circles," which was one of the later songs that wasn't even recorded for the album. Was recorded as a potential single. But then when the album came out in the U.S. a couple months later, they tagged it on at the end. And "Circles" is really just to me also a fun tune. I know it's got some kind of sad lyrics also. My head's going around in circles, my mind's caught up in a whirlpool dragging me down. But it's a fun tune. The Who are good at these fun, depressing tunes.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. John's horns are great, which are only on the mono mix. We don't know what happened in the stereo mix, but John's horns are great.
Horns!
Yeah. All right. Well, Becca's jumping at it. Becca, anything else you can say about this track?
Horns!
Pretty much speaks for itself.
On tracks, it's so good. That's just my comment there. That's just a general Who relevant comment. Just John playing the horns.
Anytime John busts out the horn set, it's going to be a good song.
It's gonna get real.
Yeah.
Was this the first time he had used horns on a Who song? It
Yeah.
was. Okay, it was.
So,
Now that I think about it, pretty much all of the tracks, or at least series of tracks that he has horns on, are at least good songs. A lot of them tend to be great songs as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Well, anyway, Garrett, anything? What are your thoughts on "Circles"?
It's pretty good. I mean, it's that's all I can really say about it. It's okay.
horns!
It's okay.
Okay, sure, yeah, he's got a good horn part. Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on.
What about you, Peter?
Nothing about the song in particular, "Circles," but generally piggybacking off of what we were saying about the fun, depressing songs. I kept trying to think of another one that I know, not by the Who, but listening to The Police. If you listen to On Any Other Day, he's talking about how the dog bit his leg and his wife f***ed up breakfast and she's having an affair and his son's gay and his daughter ran away. But it just sounds like a really fun song. And it would be okay on any other day.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sting was listening, saying, "Hey, there's your Who. There's your
There it
Who."
is.
Yep, and there's your Who connection because Sting was in the Quadrophenia movie.
All these British people are in cahoots.
Yeah, they're all trying to take over. They're all trying to take over music with the same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much. I don't. This is really a fun tune. And Funny enough, this one I actually kind of do go back to because there are actually two versions of this track. You know, not just the mono and the stereo mix, but once they had broken away from Shell, this was the first track they that had recorded with Track Records, their new record label. They did a re-recording of Circles, and that was released as a single. I don't think it did anything. But it's kind of unique that this is one of the few tracks. I mean, if you count the Tommy soundtrack, that who actually went back and fixed.
Okay.
So yeah, just a little fun fact.
The
So
more you know.
so that's the album, both the U.S. and the U.K. Track listing. Really quickly, when the album came out as a deluxe edition in 2002, there were a bunch of bonus tracks. Many of these were supposed to be on the original album, but did not appear. So we're kind of just going to go through each one, kind of give like really quick thoughts about that. The first, and they're all covers. The first one was a track called "Leaving Here." To me, I like it, and funny enough, it does have like a kind of a bass kind of section in the middle, and the band kind of comes in, kind of just like My Generation.
Yeah, I really like. This is a good version of Leaving Here. It's okay, but I prefer the High Numbers version that they put on the 30 Years box set.
The High Numbers one is so good.
No, isn't the High Numbers version on Odds and Sods?
Yeah.
It might be. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's on Odds and Sods because I know the Odds and Sods version.
It's
I'm pretty
different.
Sure it's on Numbers.
Yeah, I think it is. The next track was Luby, Come Back Home. Not one of my personal favorites, but nice to hear.
It's pretty good.
And
Right.
then, yeah, it's all right. And then their Shout and Shimmy, which I love because it sounds like a British version of the Isley Brothers' Shouts.
They're trying so hard to make this fun, and it's just coming off as laughable.
Yeah, like I know I'm pretty sure there's a version of this on one of their DVD collections of performances, and I can't sit through it.
No,
I'm
wow.
just like, it just kind of drags.
Yeah, that is one thing. The song really, doesn't change anything about the original, and the song doesn't change throughout. But yeah, it's okay. The next one was a song called Heat Wave, which they did re-record for their next album, a quick one.
Thank God they did. That one was much better.
I think so too. Yeah, me too. I think they got it that time. And funny enough, I was listening to it. The thing, the way that song has the tempo, the da 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 da, sounded so much like the beginning of Lies. The way that La 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 Lies opens with the da na 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 na. It's like a heat wave.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Pete heard Heat Wave and kind of wrote a song based off that. So it's good and it's a lot of fun. The next track was a track called Motoring.
Motoring. Oh,
There you go.
Yeah, the only difference.
The only difference
I
is
don't know
that
this reference.
The only
it's
difference.
totally not that song.
That's Sister Christian, and that's a much better song than this one. I don't like Motoring. I'm sorry.
This is another thoroughly mediocre one.
Yep. This is one of those where I'm just thinking, yeah, this one deserved to be scrapped. Not that it's bad, but it just plods. It just keeps going.
You can see why.
Yeah, I can see why they definitely listened and just said, you know what, maybe not. And then a few others. There was Anytime You Want Me, which was on the B-side to one of their singles. I can't remember which one it was right now. And that was another cover. And to me, that was just another waste of a B-side. I'm sorry, I don't like that one either.
True waste. Yeah. I don't know why they bothered putting the acapella version on this.
Because darn it, you need to hear it again.
Well,
Yeah, the deluxe edition. There's the original and there's an acapella version. I don't need either.
Oh
Sorry. All right, and then just a few other ones. There was Instant Party Mixture, which after doing some research was supposed to be the B-side to the Circles single, which never happened. Man, and that one's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it actually is pretty good.
Yeah, for once, for one of the songs.
Oh, I think you skipped the Anyway Anyhow.
Oh, no, well, I was getting to it.
Okay.
Because that one did come out, but this is an alternate vocal from a French EP that they made, because in in France, you do EPs and not singles. to me, there's like really no difference. Really, I'm sorry. I mean,
It's interesting.
yeah,
It's not anything I'd replace the original.
No, not really. Oh, and then there were the unedited versions of "I Don't Mind" because you need to hear that song again, also. And the unedited version of "The Good's Gone." So those were all the tracks that were on the 2 CD deluxe edition 2002. Bringing it up to date in 2014, iTunes Store, you can get the digital version of the deluxe edition, and you can also get the stereo version of the album on iTunes, the complete songs, including the stereo mixes of all the bonus tracks, and you can get the mono version of this album and all the mono versions of the bonus tracks. And even, I think on the stereo version, there's like an alternate "Out on the Street" and an alternate "The Kids Are Alright." It's just enough already. You know, if you get the deluxe edition, you should get everything. But
yeah, they got an instrumental version of "My Generation." They got "A Legal Manner" and "My Generation" mono versions with extra overdubs that you're probably more familiar with.
But to me, that's useless. Only because those are on the mono album.
Yeah.
It's like they just had 10 minutes at the end of the second disc and just tagged those on there. So.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, anyway, let's probably get back in a better mood because it's time to rate the album. You know, rate it in your own way. I guess I'll start with this one. You know what? I'm gonna give the album, strictly the album. You know, not including any bonus tracks or anything. Just the album. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Only because I'm thinking in my head. You know, it's like, you know, out of 10, it's like an 8. It's not good. I mean, it's not great. It's not terrible, but it's slightly better than good, and I can't give it any more than 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5. So that's my rating for the album. So, all right, Peter, do you want to rate this album?
After first listen, you know, I mean, I feel like I would like it more after listening to it more, but right now I'm sitting at a solid 3 out of 5.
Not bad for your first listen. That's at least halfway.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of that's from My Generation. I mean, My
Generation alone
is accredited to at least 2 of those points.
There you go. Yeah.
Becca, what about you?
I give it like a solid 7 out of 10.
All right.
Like, it's good, but like, again, you know, like at least 5 of those 7 are from My Generation, and The Kids Are Alright, like combined.
Right.
And Garrett, what do you give the album?
I'm thinking 3 out of 5 TARDISes for me. Yeah, because, you know, oh God, why did they do James Brown?
It was their stage act. All right.
Yeah, 3 out of 5 TARDISes there.
All right. Anyway, so sorry. So we're all upset. So we're gonna go away. But before we do that,
come on, it was good.
We're all upset.
A good-ish podcast.
It was definitely the album that they needed to start with.
yeah, I mean, if this was their third album, I would probably have given it a lower rating, only because, you know, you can only start from here.
Yeah.
So
plus, if they had gone and written Who's Next or Quadrophenia the first time, then they would have just written crap the whole rest of the time.
Yeah.
yeah.
Plus, with like the context of the time period they were in and everything, it made sense.
Mm-hmm. They got the crap out already. Mm-hmm.
It's just, it hasn't aged the best is the issue.
Well, again, you know, certain songs.
Again, the context of the time period it was created in.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, certain
Like, upon taking some sort of like history and analysis of like societal impacts kind of course, I can take a new angle on it and say that for its time, it was a pretty solid record.
Mm-hmm. And also, you know, aside from the Rolling Stones, not many white groups were doing, you know, R&B. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's
They tried.
They tried. Thank you, Happy Jack.
Yay.
And that's actually a better song than most of these. Anyway, so now that we're now that we're in that.
Sorry, you got the riff from Happy Jack stuck in my head.
Well, yeah, well, good. That's a good song. I'd rather have that stuck. I'd rather have that stuck in.
That next time.
Yeah, I'd rather have that stuck in my head than, you know, Much Too Much or anything like that. So all right. So anyway, so that's our review of.
Oh.
Yeah, don't get that one stuck in my head. We're not gonna be friends anymore, and we won't.
I'll never be invited back again.
No, you're invited, and you did a great job. Let's give Peter a hand, everybody.
Peter.
You did a great job. Anyway, a better a very strong debut.
Yes.
So
Just like the Who, right?
Just like the Who. You know, the Who's, and you know what? The Who's debut was pretty strong. That's why, you know, I just realized I gave it the highest rating. But, so I'm just biased because, you know, I love them. Anyways, I'm running out of breath. So that's our review of the album, My Generation, giving its 50th anniversary release. What do you think of the album out there in Radio Land? You can write to us, leave us comments on our YouTube page, and let us know what you'd like to hear us review next. Before we sign off, we just would like to say, if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is It's Only Tom. There's no apostrophe and there's an underscore in between each of the words. And Becca's on Twitter. Becca, where can they find you?
You can find me at That's Grody. Again, no apostrophe and an underscore. That's underscore Grody. If you want to see really depressing garbage and screaming about more modern bands and probably about public restrooms.
Well, there.
If that's what you're about, then yeah, you can find me.
There you go. And Garrett is on YouTube. Also, he's doing a Doctor Who thing, correct?
I'm voice acting in a couple of Doctor Who things here and there. You can find one of them on Here's Joe King, as in the monarch.
All right.
I'm not a twit, so don't look for me on the Twitter.
Hey.
Trying to think of anything else. Oh yeah, I have my own podcast on mixcloud.com/amazing-journey. I haven't uploaded in a while.
Since
God
August.
I know, I stopped a long time ago, but I will eventually move on with it. Please, I will.
Someday.
Yeah, well, you know what? When it comes back, we'll announce it so that people aren't still waiting in vain for it.
Yeah.
All right, and
Anticipating with bated breath.
Exactly. So
All 5 of our listeners. 6, excuse me.
Peter, and anything to plug yourself?
And yeah, you can follow me, Peter. Well, if you're like me and don't use social media for anything productive, you can find me on the Instagram machine at SCHARFF. That's Scharff Attack, one word.
Scharff Attack. That's
Scharff Attack.
Yeah, that's great.
It's my last name, if anyone didn't know.
Right, just the Scharff part.
Yes, not the attack. That would be kind of cool.
Too.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anyway, so thank you all for listening. So from all of us at Triple Threat, say bye. We have been your hosts. I have been Tom Marutia. In fact, I still am Tom Marutia. And
Get out.
yeah, and joining me has been Garrett Hicks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Becca Cristino. And wrapping up his debut, Peter Scharff. Thank you, Peter, for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually changing my name to Turd Ferguson, just like Burt Reynolds did.
You don't say.
And Tits McGee is on vacation.
Tits McGee is on vacation.
That's a great tag at the end of our show.
Oh my god.
Tits McGee will return.
Massive brownie points, sir.
Anyway, so thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for our episode about the 50th anniversary of The Who's first album, My Generation. What do you think of the album? Leave us a comment down below, and click that like button if you enjoyed this episode. Before we go, I want to give some big shout-outs to fellow YouTubers Kiki Lugo, I believe that's how you say that name. Thanks so much for subscribing, and let us know what you think of the show. Also, YouTuber Rockboy680. He did a great review of this album on his channel, link in the description for that video, so go check it out and tell him Triple Threat sent you. And of course, we want to thank my good friend Peter Scharff for coming on and joining us. Peter will return soon, and so will we. So in the meantime, share this episode on Facebook and Twitter, check out the other episodes of the show, and subscribe if you haven't already by clicking that big red subscribe button. New episodes come out every month, so be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss a single one. From all of us at Triple Threat, thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers!
They played that song in the
New
office.
album, yeah?
It's great.
What a terrible world, what a beautiful world. You heard the new one, yeah?
No, in fact, he told me, I didn't know that there was a new album out until he told me.
Really? You didn't
Yep.
hear the song Make You Better? I'm glad it's the single. It's great.
It's fantastic.
I know about this stuff because I was just finishing up editing the first part of Endless River, and we were talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, you had sent me the Endless River files. I was listening back to that, and I was thinking, you know what? I never actually heard the Crane Wife, and so immediately I started listening to it, and then I pretty much haven't been able to stop since then.
Nice.
So good.
It's so great. Okay. Anyway, also to review what I told you guys earlier. It's all the tracks. Are you done?
I had a lot of cookies. Have you heard of the Chips Ahoy with the brownie filling in the middle, where you can like microwave them, and they're like. I just blew through a whole pack. I'm sorry.
No, but I kind of want one.
They're really good. They're a shot.
You want to get some after the show?
I've got birthday cake in my house.
Oh, that's true. He just had his birthday just last week.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Wait, what day was your birthday?
Wednesday.
Oh, mine was this past Monday.
Oh, no way. That's cool. My brother's was yesterday.
Cool.
Right. And
Guess. Who else's birthday is on Wednesday?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
it was George Harrison's, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Guess his birthday is tomorrow.
I know my rockstar birthdays. Don't test me.
Rockstar. Ding ding.
Dinner's ready.
Supper's ready.
That's a fantastic Genesis song.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And there Becca goes licking her copy of Pink Floyd's Endless River. Again, another thing for our radio audience. Oh.
I'm just kidding.
I have Altoids.
Been
I am
around.
an ass. That's all you must know.
But those aren't mine. I mean, those aren't yours.
No, they aren't mine.
Those aren't mine.
It's my room, and everything's not mine. All right. And I think we know who it was in the group that was finding that marijuana. So let's move on to the next track. Oh boy, I'm gonna get letters. I'm gonna get letters from all 5 of our listeners.
All 5.
Oh.
Well, you should subscribe. It'll give us 6.
I am subscribed, I thought.
No,
Oh,
you're subscribed to my channel. Ours is different.
I'm going to change that right now.
Well,
I'll fix it. Oh, okay.
Let's do it during the
Our
break.
6th listener?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like, you're surprised, Garrett. You're one of them.
Hey, you know what? That's cool. I spoke on it before I even listened to it, before I even followed it. So
High five.
There you go.
Look at you and your hipster and glasses and. Anyway.
Just real quickly on a technical note, I'm a dumbass. I skipped over illegal matter, so let's talk about that, and I'll just edit that in the song listing.
Okay.
Where'd you go?
What, are we going to get sued or something?
I didn't want to get nose blowing noises on the thing.
I think we got one, but it'll be fine.
What?
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
At one point, this was my favorite Who song of all time, and it's still an excellent song, but it's not my favorite. Come on,
Mm-hmm.
when Quadrophenia exists, you can't have any favorites from other places.
Have you heard any of
Nope.
these bonus tracks? You have
None
not.
of them.
Okay, so you can't really contribute.
I'll just shut up now.
All right. Well. Okay.
So I'm gonna grab some socks because my feet are cold.
Oh, okay. Why didn't you do that before the show started?
They weren't
We're
cold then.
before.
Okay. I got a Vine notification.
No, not right now. We stay in focus, Thomas.
Well, that was the end. Well, that was the end of the first. That's the end of the first side. So that's the end of the first half.
No, we're not done talking about
No,
this
we're not
song.
done. Yeah, I've got points to points to make.
Okay.
I still have something to say. I'm sorry if we're kind of talking over you, Peter.
Oh no, it's cool. I'm kind of a casual observer right now. No,
Yeah.
it's
Feel
cool.
free to assert yourself at any time.
Absolutely.
No, he even said that before I asked him to do this, he's kind of a casual Who fan. So this was a good opportunity for him to explore this album.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
I can-
nice to have additional perspective, someone who's not as rabid fans as we are.
No, I could literally say before last night that My Generation was the only song I've heard off this album.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I guess if you're gonna hear one, that's a good one to hear.
Internet cut off. Hang on.
Oh, great.
There are worse things you can have cut off, I guess.
All right, then. Are we still recording, Tom?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Good. This is important.
Yeah, our audience totally needs to know that someone went away, and so they have to endear and barrel through the awkward conversation.
Just paved the way, didn't she?
It's the things that our audience has to deal with. I mean, heck, if they can digest our April Fool's episode, they can digest this.
Was that the right thing to do?
I think so. I mean, we needed.
Have you heard our April Fool's episode?
No, I'm not a listener yet.
We will.
Right.
I can do that while
So
we're
subscribe right now. Right now.
I'm doing it. I'm doing
Do
it.
Okay, go search Triple Threat Podcast on YouTube, and then look under channels. We should be, I think, the second one listed. There's another channel on YouTube called Triple Threat, and for some reason they are ahead of us in terms of like relevance.
I think it's because there are 3 like
Do they talk
middle-aged
about basketball or
girls
something?
in it.
Now go to channels, at the top. That's us, the second one.
Yep.
It's
No, well, the other Triple Threat podcast only has 2 videos and 1 subscriber.
we're ahead, but why aren't we listening?
Oh wait, hold on.
Subscribe.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6.
Nice. Right.
Hmm.
Because we got 20 videos with 6 subscribers, as opposed to the other ones. Hurry! Don't leave them hanging.
Oh, sorry. I was looking at the other one. There are 3 channels with the words Triple Threat in it. You do have the most videos and the most subscribers.
I'm so proud.
Woo!
And and what's kind of funny is that on my channel I will like the Triple Threat videos just so that they'll show up in my feed for anybody who follows me.
Yeah.
They'll be like, Tom liked the video, and so hopefully somebody will watch it and get interested.
I have shame.
Right.
I do the same.
Well, you don't do it as much as I think. I think I thumbed up everything, including the April Fool's episode.
I have.
Dare I ask what it's about, or should I just listen to it?
The
later
April
and
Fool. The April Fool's. What basically we signed
Wait. It's like Seinfeld. It's a show about nothing.
literally.
Okay.
Yeah, we trick you into thinking we're going to talk about something, and then we just kind of go off tangents. In fact, I'm not even in the episode, which is the other April Fool's, because I'm in every episode we have ever done, but not that one.
Huh.
Because it's a little bit awkward because you hear him introduce us instead of me.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's still odd to listen to because I'm the one that's the most clear, and I hardly ever am except when I'm with Tom. It's funny.
It's like when you get used to watching the news, and then they have someone out for the day. It's like, oh,
Yep.
Good morning. I'm such and such. So and so is on vacation. Or
Yeah.
You're not. It's not the same.
it's yeah. What is it? Welcome to Channel 4 News. I'm Veronica Corningstone. Tits McGee is on vacation.
Yes.
Have you not
Oh.
seen Anchorman?
Oh my god! Oh my god! This is Ron Burgundy and Tits McGee. That's it. I'm done.
Hi,
I can't do the show anymore.
Hi, I'm Tits. I'm Ron Burgundy.
No. I'm Ron Burgundy? Question mark?
Damn it, who typed a question mark into the teleprompter?
Whatever he will read, he will say it.
Go yourself, San Diego.
Don't do this to me.
I have not had the pleasure of seeing either of the Anchorman movies.
Just watch the first one. You can live your entire life without seeing the second one. And
Oh,
you will die happy.
I liked the second one.
I mean, it had funny jokes, but
I
they
think-
shouldn't have made it.
I think it relied too much on the first one because you know what? Will Ferrell needs more money. Damn it! That's why they made the second one.
Yeah, he
Basically.
totally needs the money.
Yeah. As if he weren't one of the richest comedic actors ever. But oh man, no, I actually like the second. In fact, I think I have it on Blu-ray over in my brother's room. Actually, he's got both because we just love Ron Burgundy so much.
It's on Netflix, the second one.
Yeah, it is. Actually, both versions are both the regular and the supersized one.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the supersized one, that's the one that's a waste of time because it's essentially with different jokes
Why did
and
you leave us?
It just.
Okay, so we've had this really garbage
Oh,
Comcast router.
Oh, you're back. Cool.
I hear good things about Comcast, and when I say good, I mean awful.
Yeah, like how their routers
Yeah.
don't work.
What? But you
There's-
know what?
And like to
Neutrality
drop the
won
internet connection.
Net neutrality won,
Sporadically.
though.
What?
Net
What?
neutrality won, so no, we won't be having much more of that Anyway.
Yeah, apparently.
You made me very uncomfortable there.
Apparently Comcast, after a customer kept having the same complaint that about the same problem, they actually changed the name on her account, and on her bill it said Super Bitch, like Robinson or whatever her last name was. Yep. That happened.
We have so much to contribute to our topic.
I do.
Anyway,
Let's
make some more noise about this album before it cuts out again.
Let's get it back on track. Take it away.